afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Methodist College's MCKL Open Day. Now, to find out more on our programs at MCKL, I hope everyone is safe. But before that, my name is Samantha, and I will be your host for today's talk, where we will be covering information on various topics throughout these 2 weeks. We have our Open Day today, and we also have another Open Day next Saturday on the 19th of December. Now, joining me today for the final talk of the day will be Mr. Lau Chin An. He is the course advisor of the ACCA program at MCKL. And he will be speaking on a topic about, will future accountants be jobless? Now, before we begin, should you have any questions, please feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box below if you're watching us on Zoom. If you're streaming live, if you're tuning in from our Facebook Live, please add your questions below at the comment section. Now, over to you, Mr. Lau.
Hi, hello, good evening. Thank you, Samantha. Right, so accountants are going to lose their job in the future. Now, why would this thought ever occur? Now, allow me to share you some articles before we begin. Okay, you can see on the screen. Now, this is actually an article published by the ICAEW. And if you can see the headline, it says over here, how artificial intelligence will impact accounting. Now, I'm not going to read the whole article with you, but I would just like to draw your attention to this part that it says in 2015, that there's this research done by the University of Oxford that says accountants have 95% chance of losing their jobs. That sounds kind of scary, right? And of course, this article was then picked up by many different parties. And then we can see loads of reports being made even previously by the Minister of Human Resource said the same, that this is the article done by Sinchu, as you can see. They even quoted about how accountants are not going to have very nice prospects. It says that the jobs landscape in 2022, and if you notice that the top 10 declining jobs, we actually come ranked number 2, where it says accounting, bookkeeping, and payroll clerks. And we are not just proud to be ranked number 2, they gave us another position in number 7, accountants and auditors. That's how basically we can see that our future is really not that great. Now, this is actually quite scary, and it can also be quite easily misinterpreted. Now, if you can see the headlines, it says accountants will be most likely 95% is going to lose their job. But please read it carefully. When accountants are going to have 95% chance of losing their jobs, it's actually not the same as 95% of all the accountants will become jobless. It's not the same statement. But unfortunately, most people are reading it from the second way, perceiving that most of the accountants will become jobless. And what are we going to be? Grab driver? Food Panda driver, all right? So, you might be expecting that. Now, is that really true? Now, you got to understand, like, what triggers a job loss? We know that it's technology. We know that it's automation. People have been saying about machine learning, artificial intelligence, and we presume that computers are going to be smarter than human, or at least capable of thinking like human, so that computers are able to substitute human. Now, what I must not deny that certain functions are now being automated. We also see that there are more and more human processes that is being done mechanically by human are now being replaced by machines, by computers. But definitely the reason is because human is actually becoming more and more expensive. Now, it's so expensive that it is wise for businesses to consider do away with the human intervention so that they can maximize profit. Now, the first thing I think you need to distinguish is the difference between means and role. There are two very different things that we have over here. Now, methods are actually referring to the means, And when methods change, does it mean that the roles become outdated? Now, we probably have come to an era that when was the last time you go to bookstore and start shopping for stationery? And we're talking about, buying those highlighters, pens, correction tapes, and stuff like that, that we used to do that very, very often 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but not so often now, because basically we find that our stationaries has become less prominent in our life. And does it mean that you stop doing recording? Now, the amount of information that we have in our life is getting so much more than before, but the means of doing recording has been replaced by your phone, by your computers, things like doing cloud storage. Now, but that does not mean that information has become obsolete. So the amount of information that we have today is so much greater than those days. The means has changed, but the role remain the same. In fact, the role become so much more important in today, the rich data era. Now, let's just quote an example like cloud technology. It has actually removed the need for us to do data entry. Things like invoicing. Those days, we need an accounts clerk to actually pick up a piece of paper, log on to your systems. And I mean, if those of you who have been studying accounting for the last 20 or 25, 30 years, you probably will still remember there is a book called Buku Leja, that you actually got to go to this bookshop and buy a really big book that you can open up and then you start filling up things. Now, we don't do that anymore because the means have changed. So cloud technology has allowed us, to have our suppliers process the invoices online, and it can then be captured straight by the customers. It goes straight into the system and everything is done. So it has removed the role of a bookkeeper. Now, I didn't say it removed the role of an accountant. So the needs to have an accounting information going through the system has remained. We still need the information. Now, but does really technology be the main cause for jobs to become obsolete? Now, the answer is actually not quite true. It may be a factor, but it's never the only, and it's definitely not a major factor. It's actually the economics, it's the financial aspects that cause jobs to be obsolete. Now, I quote you an example like we look at cashless system. If you go to a supermarket and you start shopping for stuff, right? The concept of not having a human cashier has already been there many, many, many years ago. But we don't see that as a very popular idea back then, except countries like Japan has introduced that kind of system where you can go in and you shop and then you dump all your stuff, you scan it yourself, you make your own payment and you go. Now, but that's because in Japan, the cost of employing human staff is very expensive. And they weigh between the benefit of saving not employing a human with the risk that if we have dishonest customers that's going to walk out from the store without paying. So if let's say we work it out and we find that the cost of not employing a human is so much greater than the loss from the theft, then it make it worthwhile for us to replace the system. And there you go. So it's always the economics or the financial aspects that trigger the reason that why human or jobs have been made redundant, because they find that there is a better way to make money. Now, but technology is the enabler. Because of the change and advancement in technology, that's why things become possible. Look at oil. People are talking about oil will be the things of the past. But petrol has become so cheap, right? So do you foresee that anytime in the near future, people will be stopped running on petrol car? Now, the day will only come when the cost of operating petrol car will be more expensive than the hybrid car or electric car. See, as long as the cost of running petrol car is still worth it, it still gives people that kind of economy formula, people will still continue doing it. That it's always that formula that result in why that a certain role or function of job has been replaced. Now, I'm here to share with you like why you don't have to worry about pursuing a professional accountancy qualification like ACCA will not result you in a jobless situation. Now, I'm not saying it with mere views or opinion, but I would like to share with you some facts. So I'm going to let you again see some of the facts here. Well, check it out, see if you agree with me. Now, this is actually from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's actually taken from the US government's website. Now, if you're looking at the screen, now I'm just going to show you the part on the job outlook. Now, if you look at the projection, and this is a projections that the government, the US government has projected for the next 10 years from 2019 to 2029. So the total number of occupations, all jobs across, they projected is going to increase by 4%. Now, what about the increase that they forecast in terms of accountants and auditors and in terms of financial specialists? Are we actually lower than the increase in all other jobs? Now, if you realize that the figures given are exactly the same, they also projected that there will be the same 4% growth for the next 10 years. Now, so it's actually said over here that the employment of accountants and auditors is projected to grow 4% from 2019 to 2029. It's about as fast as the average for all occupation. So whatever big bombastic jobs that you're thinking right now, you realize that accountants are really not far away from that kind of growth. So we still have jobs and we still see growth. All right. Now, in fact, it is quite well said over here that it says technological change is expected to affect the role of accountants over the next 10 years. Routine accounting tasks may be automated as platforms such as cloud computing, artificial intelligence, blockchain become more widespread. Although these will allow accountants to become more efficient, so we need a better way of doing things. You know, you can be reaching a destination by walking there, by riding a bicycle, but you can drive a car. And the car is much more efficient and much more easier and much more faster. So why would you want to opt for something that is less efficient, less effective? So that's why accountants are not really becoming jobless, but we are opting for a better way of doing things. Now it goes on and says that this change is not expected to reduce the overall demand. Now instead, the automation of routine tasks like data entry, advisory, analytical duties of accountants will become even more prominent. And this is published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the US government. Now, I'm going to share you some statistics of job employment. Now, this is actually the number of employees employed by Deloitte worldwide. Now, you know, this is one of the big four, and I just want you to look at the chart, okay? The bar chart. I mean, we are not here with the numbers, but we are here with the general trend. What do you see? From 2006 to 2020, it's steadily increasing. And we are only just talking about Deloitte, one of the big four. What about the rest of the companies? What about multinationals? Now, if big four, you know, they have money, deep pockets, they definitely can invest in automation. They can afford the best technology. In fact, they are doing that. They do have good technologies to allow them to achieve optimum efficiency from their manpower, but they are still increasing in their hiring. So what does that tell you? So are we saying that technology is substituting human? Or are we saying technology is complementing human? Now, what about figures in Malaysia? So I'm going to share with you another figure over here. Now, this is actually taken from MIA website, the Malaysia Institute of Accountants. And that's our latest numbers at the moment. How many accountants do we have in Malaysia? Now, if you can see from the screen, it's actually 37,002. All right. So that's the number of accountants we have. And if you're talking about chartered accountants, it's around 36,625. Now, how many have we increased over the years? So if I would share with you another article by ACCA itself. Now, this article was actually published in March 2018. So about 2 years plus, almost 3 years. Now, back then it says that Malaysia actually has an ambition to achieve 60,000 accountants by 2020. Now, this was the figure given to me when I first started my ACCA study. And that was when they still talk about Wawasan 2020. And I still remembered standing at my school balcony, looking at KL Tower being built, KLCC being built. And I was like asking myself, like, what is Vision 2020 going to be like? And today I'm here in 2020. And I realized that we never achieved the numbers. We wanted 60,000 accountants and we only have 37,000. We are way, way behind the numbers. All right. So we can actually see that the number of accountants we have is so few compared to the needs. And this is actually in year 2018. The article was published in year 2018. Now, in fact, at that time, this is what they say that, okay, can I just highlight this part to you? That Dato' Tan said there is definitely a large gap to fill, noting that the figure stood at 28,500 5 years ago. Look at the numbers we have today, 37,000. It's actually very miserable, right? But actually, you look at the good side, it's actually showing accountants that really have good prospect. What is the reason that the Malaysian accountants numbers are so little? Now, one thing is because the Malaysian accountants are also selling like hotcakes. Actually, there's a lot of neighboring countries taking away our qualified professional accountants. We do suffer tremendous brain drain problem. So accountants are not staying on in Malaysia, but they are taken away by neighboring, advanced, better, more rich countries that, dollar to dollar. If you're paid 3,000 ringgit in Malaysia and 3,000 Sing dollar, at the end of the day, people will say a Sing dollar job is eventually 3 times the pay of Malaysia. So that kind of reason has been the main thing why we are losing accountants. Right. So I would like to share you one final statistics, and this is actually plucked from the SSM, our Companies Commission of Malaysia. Now, how many companies, businesses that we have in Malaysia at the moment? Now, this is actually the latest figures that you can see. It's taken right from the website. Now, up to end of 2019, we have 1.3. If you add on all these that we have in 2020, it comes close to 1.4 million companies, big and small combined. And we have not looked at businesses, like sole proprietors. We have not looked at limited liability partnerships. All right. So we have not looked at all that. If you add in businesses, you actually see the figures is another 7.6 million. That's a huge numbers. Now, what does the figures tells us? Every companies in Malaysia, they need to have a lot of compliance. They have to keep their accounts. All right. And most of the companies, because we do have audit exemption, but it's just a very small quantity. So I would say most of the companies are requiring an audit. So the fact that we need statutory audit means we need auditors. Now, we also need people to keep accounts, so there'll be accounting role. And you also know that every taxpayers will have to comply with income tax rules. They have to pay taxes. You need people to handle their taxes. Now, we need people who has financial accounting literacy to do the work. Now, and I hope with these facts that you can see based on what I've shared with you, you can understand that the prospects of being a professional accountant is really not that bleak. All right. It's actually kind of good. All right. Now, in fact, if being an ACCA, for example, a professional accountant, you definitely will not face an extinction of jobs. And perhaps the problem is because of the phrase or the word accountancy, that when this word is being used, too many people has mistaken it as just handling accounts. That's a very small term that you are locking yourself within a box. Professional accountancy is much, much beyond that. Now, so that brings us into the term, how do you look at what is an accountant? Now, at what level and what capacity? Do you know in June 2019 survey, if you're looking at FTSE 100, the 100 largest listed companies in UK, 1 out of 5 CEO in FTSE 100, they are all accountants. That means they possess an accounting related qualification. What does that tell you? Now, you know, in every listed companies, the board of directors must have one accountant. That's a requirement. All right. It's not a preference. Okay. So if you see the accountants is just to handle accounts, that's not the right way. All right. So when you look at a professional accountants like ACCA, please widen the scope, that the role that we can take is really, really wide and great. Now I'm going to share you another example here. Okay. Now, this is actually the website where ACCA publish their jobs. It's basically our portal for a job search. So if you're looking for jobs, you can actually come here and then you can choose your region, what kind of jobs that you want. All right. Now, and if you look at, for example, you have UK, Asia, Pacific, Africa, and so on. Okay. Now, what I want to show you is this. Now, look at the role that you can assume being a professional ACCA. Now, you're not just saying word like accountant, or accounts assistants, or audit, or bookkeeper, but you're saying word like business analyst. In fact, there are about 3,000 over jobs that is being hosted with ACCA. That's just with ACCA alone. You look at things like they're looking for CFO, the Chief Financial Officer. You're looking at things like finance director. You're looking at things like financial controller, financial planning and analysis, forensic accountant, treasury. You can see that we do play a very wide role depending on which sectors that you want to go in and what kind of role that you want to take. Now, if I just would share you about sector, you know, when you qualify as a professional ACCA, you don't have to stuck yourself with just one industry. You have the luxury of going in so many different industries that you might like, or you might just want to experience something new in your life. You know, for example, there are jobs in the defense industry. There are jobs in the retail sector, public sector. There are jobs in pharmaceutical, because basically all jobs or businesses, they need to deal with money. Now, maybe I just click one example like retail and fast moving consumer goods. Now, if you just look at the kind of jobs that's being published here, now I'm not just going to go through all that with you, but I just want to show you that who are the potential employer that you're looking at. Is Amazon, but they are all at different places: UK, London, Singapore, and then in India. So the top of the list, it's like everything, it's hiring by Amazon. All right. And of course, it's not just Amazon. This might give you a wrong impression that that's the only person hiring accountants. Maybe I jump to page 5. Yeah, you can see like different names are appearing. Amazon is still there. All right. But of course, there's some other businesses are hiring. Now, think about this. Amazon is actually an IT company. I mean, if you're looking at how IT and automation is going to replace job, and why on earth are they hiring accountants? They would have got the best IT systems on earth, right? You know, they probably will use robots, artificial intelligence, but no, they are the one that's actually looking for accountants, because there's a lot of functions that we need accounting professionals to deliver, to support the business. Now, you know, in year 2000, the largest market capitalization company is General Electrics. And the value of the market cap is about 478 billion at that time, US dollar. But at that time, right, the top 10 companies, there are four companies that are technology based, which include Microsoft and Cisco. Now, what I've gathered here now is in year 2020, that's like 20 years later, in the top 10 market capitalization companies in the world, all the top seven are technology based. So we cannot deny how significant technology has played a role in our life. All right. And these companies include companies like Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, which is Google, Alibaba, Facebook, and Tencent, okay, which is our WeChat. In fact, if you look at the list of companies, I've checked that Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, and Alphabet, these are the four companies that their market capitalization is above 1 trillion US dollar. Now, think about the numbers. The numbers are getting so big. Just ask ourselves, in the event if any of these companies is going to fail because of a scandal, because of financial crime, how devastating will the effect be? What would investors be needing? Now, investors, when they buy into the shares of all these companies, what they need is confidence, trust, a trustworthy reporting. So if you have more wealth, will you reduce your security system? Or would you rather increase the security systems to protect your wealth? Will you go to an engineer and ask, hey, how much profits do I have this year? Or if you're sick, will you go to an accountant and say, what's wrong with your body? So likewise, figures have grown exponentially. They are getting so much more significant. Those days when you tell people, I want to be a millionaire, people say, okay, that's a big dream. Today, if you look at it, a lot of people say millionaire is nothing. You can be a millionaire and you still feel so poor. And you feel like, why am I not having enough? That kind of mindset is with the mind. Well, that's because of inflation. That when figures get so much more inflated, they get so much smaller. So that's why figures are getting so big now that we can't afford to go wrong. Now, of course, we can't guarantee that things won't go wrong, but we need assurance. So we need to have people who hold the key to the numbers. And who are these people that hold the keys to numbers? The professional accountants. So will professional accountants become less important? I mean, think about that. What's the logic? All right. So these are the sharing that's from me that I would like to let you be more assured that if you ever going to start your career choosing a pathway like becoming a professional ACCA, you're not looking at a short-term decisions that end up after 10 years, wondering where you're going to be, what kind of jobs you're going to be. Will Grab still be there? Will Food Panda still be there for you to ride your motorbike? No, it's not going to be that. So it's definitely sufficient to sustain you, even for the next 50, 100 years. ACCA has, I think, 120 over years now, and there's definitely no issues for them to continue the next 100 years. So long that money is there, you need accountants. Thank you. Back to you, Samantha.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lau. Okay. Okay, so I have questions for you from the public. The first question is, how will IR 4.0 affect all these future accountants?
Okay, that's the big word, IR 4.0. Well, like what I've just covered is the things about automation, things about data analytics, things about IT. It's getting more prominent because the technology is getting smarter. So machine learning is getting more capable. Now, a lot of functions are being taken over by these machines. Now, I just quote you an example. See, in the past, when we're going to go to a warehouse to do stock take as part of the audit, we will actually need to mobilize human to actually go to all the different aisles to start counting the stocks with our physical strength, our eyes, by hand and so on, and record and using paper, stationery, and chalk. All right. But we don't do that now, or we don't have to do that so often in the future because we have got technologies like drone. So have you ever imagined accountants are also like pilot, where we have to fly drone, all right? So controlling drones to go into the warehouse, and the drones will actually be able to fly down to all the aisle, and then through all these computer systems, they will be able to detect the stocks and then verify whether you have the quantity and so on. Now, this is just one example of how IR 4.0 has changed the way we do things. So what are we expecting will be accountants with very different skill. You know, you cannot just survive with just one skill alone. You cannot just say that I'm very good at accounting and, you know, that's it. I'm going to be so-called the best for the next 30 years. Now, looks like it's not going to be. So you have to open up with an attitude like a continuous learning. So probably a person who is now at the mid 50 will be quite reluctant to learn how to fly a drone. You know, things that they will look at it as a toy for their children, remote control plane, all right? But for the youngsters, it's something that, you know, you have to pick it up as a necessity. So a lot of things is going to change along that way. So these are how things might change. So IR 4.0 will bring that kind of changes, and it will only be beneficial to you because you're able to use the technology. So if you resist the technology, you refuse to change. This is like, for example, you have a person who say, I'm not going to use smartphone, all right? And because of the pandemic, there is one app that was not very well known but became famous overnight, is the app called Telegram. I believe a lot of Malaysians start to use Telegram because of COVID, but Telegram has been there for years. But why now? Because circumstances has changed, because people need a way of broadcasting that is so efficient. Now you can still say, well, I'm going to resist Telegram. I'm not going to use it. I'm just going to wait for newspaper and wait for the TV where the ministers will stand in front of TV, or our DG will be there to announce the numbers. You can do that, but eventually you will lose out. So that's where IR 4.0 will come in. Don't resist the change.